Hey guys, it's Mitch. How's it going? We're back with more of Inferno. We're kind of getting into the thick of it now. And what we're getting in this one is going to be the Uncanny X-Men versus X Factor in Uncanny X-Men number 242. So just before we get into it, if you enjoy the channel, if you feel like you might want to help out a little bit, go subscribe to my Patreon. Links are in the description, gives you early access to everything I do, helps out the channel, helps to buy new comics. So yeah, we're getting into the thick of things now, where it's starting to get a little difficult to keep track of all of the dangling plot threads. The main thing is that Madelyne Pryor, Scott Summers' wife, has made a deal with some demons to get herself some powers because she's super pissed off at Scott because he ran away from home so he could play superhero with his ex-girlfriend, Jean Grey, and their buddies Beast and Iceman and Archangel. They were there too. So she's got herself a whole bunch of powers now. The demons that she made a deal with are making changes to New York to make it more hell-like, with the objective of creating a stable portal between Limbo and the human world, so that demons can travel freely through, and they'll basically create hell on Earth. In order to do that, Madelyne is going to have to sacrifice her son, Nathan Christopher, which is something she was getting around to in the last chapter we read, which was X Factor number 37. She's kind of reached this point where she realizes that she was never really even a person, because she's a clone created by Mr. Sinister of Jean Grey that was created with the sole purpose of hooking up with Scott and creating a baby. So now her purpose is fulfilled. Sinister doesn't really need her anymore, except to try and, make a better clone at some point. So she's been betrayed by her husband. Her creator doesn't want anything to do with her anymore. And most recently, the demon that she's been making deals with, N'astirh, has been very obviously manipulating her. So she's on her own. All she's got is a horde of demons that she keeps launching after X Factor, just trying to torment them. And which leaves us with the question of, so where do the X-Men fit into all of this? Well, they're in New York too, and they're slowly being transformed as well into kind of more demonic versions of themselves. Not quite like evil twin kind of stuff, but just more nasty. And at the end of the last chapter of Inferno, the X-Men had finally stumbled upon X Factor. So that's where we're going to start in this one. We might as well start with the cover. This is the third of like a triptych, basically, along with the previous two Uncanny X-Men covers by Mark Silvestri. They all have this kind of motif with three figures on the top and some sort of group of people bursting out at the bottom. And it's a great look. The best one, I think, is still the first one of the triptych in Uncanny X-Men number 240 that had Mr. Sinister up top and then the Marauders underneath. But, I mean, this is still pretty strong. We've got our evil versions of our X-Men at the top and X Factor, who look very garish in comparison. And it's going to be a little weird seeing Mark Silvestri draw X Factor, but that's what we're going to get. And the cover's going to let us know this is a giant-sized spectacular. This is a 48-page issue, because Inferno isn't long enough. We got to stretch it out even further. But yeah, great cover. The designs on these have always been great. And oh my god, what is happening in this one? So we're going to start things off with a big old smooch between Logan and Jean Grey. And I guess this was kind of anticipated back in the day and never really got fulfilled, up until this point anyway. Great looking splash. Jean doesn't look particularly uninterested, and it's a great way to just kind of grab your interest, like, hey, you maybe want to read this book, and just see what happens? And I mean, just a good solid shot of a kiss, which can be tough to pull off. And then we're going to get a big old double page splash of everybody involved in this thing. All of the X-Men, all of X Factor, and Logan and Jean in the middle. Still going on with that smooch. That smooch is going for a while. And of course, keeping our interest with, what we want to see. It's like, whoa, is that kiss actually happening? It's like, oh shit, yeah, it's happening, man. So they break the kiss. It was Logan initiated it because this is the slightly more evil than usual version of Logan. Got a great moment where Scott's like, hey, get your hands off her. And Logan's like, hey, buddy, back up. You already got a redhead, remember? Your wife. And Jean's had about enough of Logan at that point, so she just kind of shoves him off with a telekinetic burst. And she's trying to, be all self-controlled and shit in the next panel, but her internal monologue is going a little crazy. She was enjoying that kiss a little bit. And trying to reconcile it with what they know about the X-Men, which at that point is they're supposed to be dead. And of course, as far as the X-Men are concerned, so is Jean. So, fair's fair, I guess. She tells Beast and Iceman to go after Madelyne while there's some confusion. While they're swooping in, they're like, why did she switch to her Madelyne Pryor look with like the jumpsuit and she's got her baby and all that? And it's like, well, because it's easier to convince Havoc to shoot you when she's like that. So we're getting right into it with some hero-on-hero infighting. While he's blasting him, Havoc accuses X-Factor of being a mutant hunting group, that they've turned against Charles Xavier's dream. So, I mean, he's not exactly going full villain. And X-Factor tried to deny it, but that is the reputation that they've put out there. It is with an altruistic motive, because the actual thing they do is they say that they're mutant hunters, go and find the mutant, and go and shuttle it off to safety somewhere. But nobody knows that. And in the meantime, they've got this rep as a fearsome bunch of mutant hunters. Wolverine digs the knife in further. He's like, you don't like it? Don't pay for the ads next time. And Needle and Jean and Scott about that kiss again. He's not going to let it go. Which pisses Archangel off, because his deal apparently is that, well, for one thing, Wolverine hasn't changed at all over the years. And the other thing he says is that Jean's spoken for. And it's like, is she now? And Wolverine takes offense, just sees this as, oh, so I'm just not good enough for Jean. Is that what it is? So that's his excuse to go leaping at Archangel. But this is the first time he's actually met Archangel since he had his run-in with Apocalypse, which wasn't long ago, like 15 issues maybe. So he's not aware of what tricks Archangel has, such as wing blades, which he can shoot at Wolverine in apparently a really high volume. And just, showering him with these blades, which end up just all sticking at him. That's a pretty cool shot there. Nice choice to get the silhouette in among what are essentially speed lines with all the flying blades. Rogue swoops in to take out Archangel, tries to go and absorb his power with a smooch, as usual. There's going to be a fair bit of smooching in this issue. And while she's trying to absorb his power, she kind of, gets in touch with his memories. And the first thing that looms over Archangel's psyche, of course, is Apocalypse. Archangel shoves her off without being weakened at all, which I don't think even really gets explained in this issue. Cyclops shoots her with his laser eyes to knock her out of the way. Iceman's going to try and wall in the remaining X-Men to just kind of separate them, but Havoc, of course, is going to just melt everything with, I think they're called plasma bolts at this point. And it's just, going to melt the whole thing and just flood the area. So we're already well into the fight, so we're going to get all sorts of fun action stuff going on. Like I said, fun seeing Mark Silvestri draw the X-Factor, guys. Like, he does a nice job with Archangel's wings here. Interesting to see how he's doing it, where he's just doing these big shapes and then, putting in these streaks after the fact. And I'm thinking back to like Whilce Portacio's version of X Factor. And it's like, man, he would have drawn all those feathers, wouldn't he? Yeah, he would have. He would have. Dazzler gets caught in the bit of a flood that goes on. And she gets tripped up by Longshot here, who gets her down. This is a bit of a more aggressive Longshot. And then they're going to have a little makeout session, which is all right. They've had some troubles recently. It's nice to see them getting over it. And Dazzler and Longshot haven't had a whole lot to do in this whole crossover, it feels like. Dazzler in particular. Longshot you can usually just throw in the mix of the action, and he'll do his fighty stuff, like he's as good as Colossus for that kind of thing. Dazzler, it's tough, because you don't want to use like hard light beams too often, or it's just like, okay, so that's what her power is then, is just to shoot hard light beams. And then without that, she can blind people, but that's still not, the same kind of, use in a fight. So Scott goes to pull Madelyne out of the water, and she's just giving him shit the whole time. Every time he tries to defend himself, she cuts around him, which is fair because ultimately he doesn't have a defense, because her main thing is you left your wife and child to go and hang out with the person you really love. And there's no real counter argument for that. And then, of course, Havoc runs to Madelyne's rescue because Havoc has decided, hey, we're both kind of like second best to Scott, so let's team up. We'll be the new power couple. Team Silver coming at you. And at that, N'astirh appears at Madelyne's side. And this is new and improved N'astirh, who has somehow gone through the transmode virus. I said before, I'm not sure what issue that would have happened in. But he's kind of a combination of like Demon from Limbo and Warlock from New Mutants. So this has somehow made him more powerful. He smacks aside the Summers brothers. That was actually kind of, legit. And Madelyne is having fun toying with Alex and Scott, But Jean, she just outright hates. So she sicks her demons on her. And in this case, the demons, of course, that she picks are Jean's parents, who she turned into demons. Bit of a fun bit here where Dazzler's like, oh, Red's in trouble. And Longshot's like, ours or theirs? Theirs. What'd you ever do for us? Because they're in kind of evil twin mode. And Dazzler and Longshot would never have met Jean. Well, maybe Dazzler would have actually. I think she first came out right around in the Dark Phoenix saga. But yeah, Longshot, definitely not. So at that point, N'astirh kind of appears out of nowhere at the helm of a demon carriage, which is, I'm sure, available from Hasbro. It sure looks like something out of, like, the real Ghostbusters cartoon. And he's barreling towards Madelyne. And so this is like some sort of moment of decision where Scott can pick which woman he actually loves. He can save Jean from her demon parents, or he can destroy the demon carriage that's rolling towards his actual wife. So what does he do? Naturally, he saves Jean. And if there was any doubt about how he actually felt, that kind of clarifies things. Not that I think if he'd saved Madelyne, that would have changed anything, but it is one more thing that she can use against him, I guess. And she doesn't even get run over by the carriage. He just kind of scoops her up, I think. And they go rolling off, probably towards the Empire State Building. That's where everything's kind of centering on. And the art has been fun stuff. It's all been pretty quick, really, for the most part. He's not going super hard on any detail. He'll take his opportunities to drop out the background just to, for one thing, keep things clear, but also this is a 40-page issue. Like 40 plus ads. Like, that's a lot of drawing to do in 1 month. Particularly since, like, he's not getting any breaks. Like, he's drawing all the other monthly issues in this series, too. I'm reasonably certain that he will get a break after this series is over. But, yeah, no, for now, him and Dan Green are just buckling down and whipping out pages at a breakneck pace. So Havoc managed to grab the demon carriage and hold on for dear life. And the speed is just, it's ripping all his costume off. Imagine that. Leaving him as sexy Havoc. The Goblin Prince. I'm telling you, in a Silvestri book, everybody has to be the sexiest version of themselves possible, even the dudes. That's why Colossus is always running around in that thong when Mark's drawing. So they make their way to the Empire State Building, and it kind of closes down behind them, just clamps down. And speaking of Colossus, he runs up out of nowhere, and he's going to save the day, except, of course, he can't because he gets blocked off. So instead, he's just going to climb up the outside of the Empire State Building, which is larger than usual. It has been growing in size for like the last couple of months. Yeah, fun shot of the Empire State Building here when they're barreling towards it. And it's just kind of turning into shadow as it recedes into the atmosphere. And our page transition is going to be Longshot getting hit in the back of the head with a snowball, which Dazzler thinks is hilarious. Longshot gets all pissed off because Iceman made him look bad in front of his girl, so he's going to throw knives at him. But none of them get through, which is weird for Longshot. Iceman, he blocks it all with an ice shield of some kind. But still, you'd think that would, the first one would crack it and then they'd all go through after it because it's Longshot. Beast throws a big old rock at them, which, Longshot would be able to get out of the way of. But, Dazzler's just going to get murdered here, except that Rogue pulls up a tree and smacks it back at him. That's fun stuff. Like, this is more, it's like tussling than actual fighting. So yeah, the rock hits Beast square, it sends him flying, and then we get a big old group shot of Jean Grey versus Psylocke, Longshot and Dazzler taking down Cyclops, and Iceman going after Wolverine. Longshot and Dazzler in particular are like acting like little kids at this point, just being like, hey, say uncle. And he does. And he says uncle. And they're like, that wasn't convincing. Say it again. So yeah, just acting like schoolyard bullies. Like, this isn't a serious fight, at least not with these two. Wolverine, bit of a different matter. He's actually kind of out for blood. So it took a swipe at Bobby's ice slide, and before he can get to Bobby, Archangel swoops in, scoops him up, and they go tumbling down the hill. Nice shot here. Interesting choice, going for the long shot, instead of some kind of close-up where the figures would be bigger, and, you'd be able to, like, twist them up and everything, but you maybe lose track of the geography a little bit. So actually paying attention to storytelling there. Logan takes a swipe at Archangel, and he's got his cool, Inferno outfit going on. Manages to miss, so Archangel returns the favor, cutting a tree down. It's interesting how that's the fight that keeps coming back, and that's the one that seems to be getting the most brutal. All right, so from there, we're going to cut to Storm, who's just kind of surveying the battlefield, not really taking part. She's kind of conflicted. She's got all these, nasty Inferno impulses, but she's not reacting to them the same way that the X-Men are. When in an actual battle, she's been kind of ruthless, but that's reflecting Storm's character, who has been getting kind of ruthless lately. She sees the Empire State Building growing off in the distance, just towering over the entire city. That's fun stuff. And that makes her think of the butte that her and Forge were on when they were in like the little pocket dimension that the Trickster God sent them to, and then Forge had them teleported back. And she's like, what is the significance of that? Why am I thinking of this? And I don't think we get an answer. I think the answer might just be because Mark wanted to draw it. So they reach the summit of the tower, or, close enough anyway. And we got to get set up for this sacrifice, which absolutely needs to happen, or everything I've done to turn New York into a hellscape is going to reverse. It's like, oh, okay, so there's a ticking clock element. I wasn't aware of that. So Madelyne snaps her fingers and creates like a sacrificial altar. Yeah, they are pretty much at the summit there. N'astirh's kind of blown away because he can't even do that kind of thing. Jean's parents bring baby Nathan Christopher to Madelyne. It always comes back to them. And she's just kind of like, hey, buddy, sorry it didn't work out, but you're going to have to die now. So yeah, getting pretty dark. Down on the ground, Jean's like, hey, I can see that baby way up like 7 miles in the sky. And here are his thoughts, and I've confirmed that Madelyne plans to kill him, which is kind of a fucked up thing to say in just like a monthly, X-Men comic that's going to be on the rack. And Madelyne hears baby Nathan call out to Jean Grey and, basically tell her that he's in danger. And that infuriates her. It's like, how fucking dare you? Just because I'm the one that's going to kill you doesn't mean you shouldn't be calling out to me. And that's going to, infuriate her even further, which is going to basically increase her power, probably. That seems to be the way it's been working. Cut back to Rogue hammering at Jean and getting through the psychic shield, except that she gets swept away by a gust of wind. Storm basically picks up Jean, floats her up to him, and they have this moment of like square off. And then Storm kind of, the real Storm kind of comes through. And this is the first time she's seen Jean alive in years. And so they get their little reunion there. And it's like, oh, that's actually kind of nice. We're not getting a ton of really spectacular looking art in this. I think part of that is just the speed he's working at. He doesn't have the time to work out really interesting compositions. It is interesting, considering that, like the Image guys were really big on the anchor image. It might have been more of a Jim Lee, Todd McFarlane, Rob Liefeld kind of thing, but still, like, I'm pretty sure Silvestri was in that mix and he was aware of the concept. But yeah, not really going for it in this. He's going like pure storytelling. It is also kind of interesting when you think back to what Walt was doing in X Factor, where, he's got to be moving at the same speed that Silvestri is. And he's coming up with some really dynamic pages pretty easily, which isn't saying anything against Mark. At this point, he's been in the business like 5 years, I think, around there, maybe a little bit more. And, the fact he's doing what he's doing, like creating pages of this quality this fast, is pretty fucking incredible. And, I guess Walt has been here around like 10 years longer. So it's not that much of a surprise, really, that he can incorporate, interesting compositions at a faster clip. It's just interesting to compare. So while Jean and Storm are having their little reunion, N'astirh's swooping in because nobody's allowed to have nice things. And everybody's going to try and focus down N'astirh. Jean's going to try and hit him with telekinetic bolts. Aurora's going to try and hit him with lightning. Angel swoops in. He's got a grudge against N'astirh and tries to hit him with his wing blades. Everything just kind of goes through him, or he absorbs it. And the wing blades in particular go through N'astirh and hit Jean and Aurora. And they go falling down into the sky, and they're all like paralyzed because that's what the wing blades do. And he's like, that's okay. I won't let you guys die that quickly. I'm going to swoop down and save you, but when I grab you, you're actually going to get infected by the transmode virus, and then you'll just get kind of slowly eaten from within. But before he can reach them, Rogue swoops in, snatches them up, and just kind of tosses them. Archangel catches Jean, Beast catches Storm. It feels like we're getting closer to being on the same page with the X-Men again. And Rogue tossing Jean and Storm kind of leaves her open for a second. N'astirh swoops in and grabs her and starts infecting her with the transmode virus. But apparently Rogue has had experience with the Magus, which I believe is Warlock's father. And she's used to dealing with the transmode virus. So she actually just kind of ends up absorbing N'astirh's power, the way her power usually works. Back up top on the Empire State Building, Havoc and Madelyne are just kind of watching what's going on. And Colossus has finally reached the top. And as soon as he reaches the top, Havoc blasts him off the altar here, sends him hurtling across the sky, just a giant metal fireball. And Iceman sees this and does like a Super Friends kind of thing, where he does like the ice slide, which curves and uses his momentum to just kind of send him shooting in another direction, which is right at N'astirh. But that's fun stuff. I feel like, that's the kind of thing I've seen Iceman do, but I can't remember when, other than in cartoons and stuff. It's like ridiculous. But like I said, just kind of fun to see in this comic. And fun to see them actually teaming up. Now, like as cool as it is to see X-Men fighting X-Men, you don't want that going on forever. You do want to actually get them all working together as against the common threat. So N'astirh's been momentarily defeated, so he heads back up to the sacrificial temple area at the top of the tower. But what he's managed to do, of course, is bring together X-Men and X-Factor so that they can work in unison. Another one of those just casual shots with a bunch of dudes in it just looking correct. Easiest thing in the world. Storm gets Psylocke to establish a psychic rapport between the two different teams, which, interestingly enough, Jean is a little bit reticent about to start with, because since she's been back, she hasn't had any kind of contact with telepaths, I guess. And she's like, oh no, telepaths are creepy. And then she starts up and, oh no, I forgot, that's nice. So through the rapport, they're able to share the experience they've had with the Magus previously. So there's no need to explain about what the techno-organic virus is. So that's something. I mean, Jean does end up explaining it anyway to, the viewer. So that's something, and makes the whole thing a little bit unnecessary. But this inspires a plan in the Beast. I'm not sure if there's actually a plan here. Maybe there is. But from there, we're going to cut to the Empire State Building just towering above everything. Like, seriously, miles up in the air. That looks absolutely fantastic. Love all the shadows going on in the clouds here. Like, great black and white balance. So what they're going to start out here by telekinetically lifting Colossus up and then shooting him with Cyclops' blast, which sends him flying, and then Storm accelerates the flying. Which, I guess that works. They're not, it's been established, of course, Cyclops' I-beams aren't lasers exactly. They're not heat beams. They're beams of force. So he's just pushing them real hard, I guess. Meanwhile, Archangel throws Wolverine, who, technically should probably weigh pretty close to Colossus when he's in his metal form, but we can overlook that. Colossus goes rocketing through the ledge here and immediately gets himself stuck in a wall. And it turns out it's a hentai wall, with just like all these tentacles start oozing all over him. Just, this really is hell. Wolverine does a flyby on N'astirh and slashes him up, so apparently his physical form is back. We're probably not worrying about that shit too much. Archangel flies Dazzler up. She separates Colossus from the hentai wall with, I'm pretty sure, hard light beams. And we are getting like a ton of action in this thing. A lot of fun shots, fun poses, fun choices being made, just all very small. Storm flies up Iceman. Iceman cuts loose because at this time I think he's got some kind of thing where his powers are getting overcharged. He's got that limiter belt, and I guess he's kind of gotten rid of that for the moment. Freezes N'astirh in place, and actually freezes the entire tower. I'm not entirely sure why, like what the point of that is. Does that get explained? I don't think it does. And the X-women are freezing because they're wearing, the skimpy skin tight material. And Beast is like, that's okay. I'm all furry and shit. You can cuddle me close. It's like, oh, this was the Beast's plan. I see. Fun shot of the tower getting covered in ice, although that quickly gets overshadowed by the tower being completely encased. That is absolutely wild. And really good job. Just keeping the tower in view where you can just see little bits of it. And then the rest, it's, the light would be glinting off of the ice, I suppose. But awesome job with just not too many strokes of making it look like actual ice. And N'astirh gloats that this has made him more powerful because superconductivity, enabling my system to work at near ultimate efficiency. So he's thinking with inconceivable speed. Spells, concepts, theorems, my mind is ablaze with knowledge and insight. It's like, shit, Ice did that, eh? And the X-Men just kind of shiver and go, Beast, that plan kind of sucked. And again, all these little figures in this not too big a panel, but foreground, middle ground, far background. I like the really thick strokes around Longshot here, because he's closest, obviously. Okay, so now Storm creates a band of equatorial heat. I don't know if that's weather exactly, but okay, sure. And that's gonna soften up the ice thing. Scott shoots it like the X-Men are just flat out sweating here at this point. Scott shoots it, Dazzler shoots it, Colossus punches it, so the ice shatters at that point, which brings us back to square one, and now N'astirh is free, and theoretically even more powerful, which seems like bad. But apparently this is bad for N'astirh because the heat is creating quantum increase in the resistance within my circuitry, sable shards, and the humid air disrupting the synapse linkages. Again, English, I suppose. I guess the idea is that the severe change in temperature is like more input than he can really handle. Like, the shots are fun. It doesn't make any kind of real sense. And at that point, Storm hits him with a gigantic bolt of lightning with the intention of essentially supercharging him at the point where his body is already, like, taxed beyond endurance. And that seems to work. N'astirh gets overloaded, and N'astirh glows up real bright. And then N'astirh explodes, like big old splash page. With all the small panel pages we've had previous to this does seem huge. Cityscape looks great, all backlit. Nice big, a little bit Simon City looking explosion. Nice. I don't know about the boom. The lettering on that doesn't look right. It's a little bit too, I don't know, like avant-garde or something. Who's doing the letters? I take it this is Tom Orzechowski. Yeah, I mean, Tom should know what he's doing, but it doesn't fit for me. But, it's just a preference, I suppose. So now the X-Men all stand at the top of the tower in the remains of the explosion. We're all like, well, N'astirh's dead, so that's good. On the downside, nothing seems to be changing with the city. That seems bad. It seems like that should have happened. Longshot's okay with it. He's like, oh, who cares? We stopped the bad guy, and we look pretty rad in the process. It's like, I kind of like new Longshot. So yeah, Beast is worried that as the source of all the city-changing shit, destroying N'astirh should have changed the city back, or at least started something, and that doesn't seem to be the case. Scott wants to choose Storm out for destroying N'astirh. He's like, we weren't trying to kill him, we were just trying to stop him. And Storm's answer is basically just, yeah, well, he's stopped. So, what's the problem? Again, we're back to the X-Men being at least nominally on the side of good, just pretty ruthless about it. And I think Mark's kind of demonstrating here, like visually, that Storm has basically turned to the dark side, just filling up the figure with black here. And while they're having their moral argument about whether it's right for the X-Men to be judge, jury, and executioner, Scott says no, Storm says maybe. Jean gets, I guess, energy lassoed. Like, why not? This is Madelyne, and Madelyne can do basically whatever Mark feels like drawing that day. And she gets yanked away. The X-Men and X-Factor all turn around. Gigantic group shot again. God damn it. And yeah, so Madelyne has Jean to end off the issue with. And she got Havoc there. And Jean's parents, and little Nathan Christopher guy. It's a whole big family reunion. And that's where the issue's gonna end, with a big, impressive splash page. As it should. We didn't get a ton of big, awesome images in this one, but we did get a couple, and at least we're leaving on the right note. I think that's maybe the most important. Kind of crazy that this wasn't a cover, actually. I wonder if this was maybe submitted at some point. Probably not, because Madelyne's head is too high. You'd be blocking out too much of the X-Men logo, I think. All right, so that's the issue. So we're getting down to it. 3 issues to go. You got to figure the next one is going to be X-Men and X-Factor versus Madelyne and Havoc, I suppose. We accomplished, I suppose, a fair bit in this issue compared to some of the previous ones. We had to have our big fight between X-Factor and X-Men, which got a little goofy here and there, but there were a couple of serious moments. And then, they got to, kiss and make up and make one big X team. And then they eliminated N'astirh. That's kind of a big deal. The only real downside is that Madelyne got kind of left by the wayside for most of the issue, but I mean, that's going to be what next issue I think is for, is to start settling that. So with all that stuff in there, yeah, you can kind of see why they went with the extended page count on this. I'm not sure if any of the other books in the crossover are going to be like that. I feel like they might be. So we'll have to see how that goes. But for this one anyway, that's going to do it. Thanks very much for watching. If you like this video, please hit like, hit subscribe, hit the notifications so you know when the next one's coming out. Go over and subscribe on my Patreon. It gives you early access to everything I do, from the Blood Force stuff to the YouTube videos before they get uploaded to YouTube, as well as some Patreon exclusive content. You can also follow me on Instagram and DM me there for commissions, and you can join the Blood Force Discord server. But yeah, that's going to do it. Thanks again for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.